Islam, peace and love, peace, love, and energy, energy, energy. I am Sade Renee L, and guess what? I'm back at it again with another video. And today I'm actually just going to be going over some more history, more with two O's and a R history. And with that being said, I'm just going to read straight through the articles and the teachings and some of the studies that I've come across that I just like to share with everyone. Again, thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and leave a comment, donate, whatever floats your boat. And per usual, I'm just going to read straight through it. The following is the definition of Moor. It is also important to note that the word Moor is a transitive word. It is a noun and an adjective action, as it is also associated with the waters or boating, due to the fact that Moors were the first to navigate upon the waters. As well, they call wetlands the moorlands or the moor. We do not show that definition here. However, you can look it up for yourself in any unabridged dictionary or encyclopedia. Moor, and I'm going to skip down to number 1, and it reads as follows. In ancient history, a native of Mauritania, a region of northern Africa, corresponding to parts of Morocco and Algeria. In later times, one belonging to the people of mixed Berber and Arab race, Mohammedan in religion, who constitute the bulk of the population of northwestern Africa, and who in the 8th century conquered Spain. In the Middle Ages, and as late as the 17th century, the Moors were commonly supposed to be mostly black or very swarthy. Through the existence of white Moors was recognized, and hence the word was often used for Negro blackamoor. Now take a look at the PDF, which I'll get to further down below, wherein we have extracted from the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, Articles 6, 11, and 21, and the additional article and sign-off indicating Moors. Thus, there is no mistake as to the parties involved and their responsibilities and obligations and the actions to be taken upon their encounters. Side note, as for those who think that the treaty was originally written in Arabic and then translated, that is an error on their part because the treaty was translated at the time it was written, as is indicated in the treaty itself. The word Muslim/Muslim is synonymous with Moor. This is one of the important things to know in doing your research. They will, in fact, use the word Moor, and then in the same sentence, sometimes sentence, certainly paragraph, they will use Muslim, just as the word Christian and Crusader, which are also the same. This is true and indicative through older writings, and is most necessary to know, along with many other names for Moors, such as Ottomans, Turks, Almoravides, Almohads, Sakrins, just to name a few. Excuse my pronunciation. Proven fact, Moor's heritage and history goes back as far, but not limited, to Freising, Germany. The Moor's head appears on the Pope's coat of arms today, as well as it is cut into the lawn at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Anytime you see in the writings possibly ancient, you can be assured that there may not much be said because the modern man integrated into the human bouquet is not ancient, thus he either doesn't know or doesn't want to tell you because he may not want you to know, as has been in the past. However, in the recent and now, truth and information is flowing freely because this is the unstoppable age of information, or age of knowing. The energy which is described to you in the sign of Aquarius, the humanitarian, of which the time is now to bring the people back into the human family, and concerns of humanity are abound. The Moor's head is a heraldic charge associated with Freising, Germany. The origins of the Moor's head, or caput, Picium in phrasing is not entirely known, typically facing to the viewer's left, dexter in heraldic terms. It appeared on the coat of arms of the old Principality of Phrasing as early as 1316. While there are several variations on Moor's head in heraldry, the one used by Fritzling and adopted by Benedict the 16 is always crowned and collared. Generally, in this form, the lips, crown, and collar are always red, while the face and hair are brown and the eyes white. If, as earring is shown, it is shown gold. The picture on the left is the coat of arms of Benedict the 16th in the garden behind St. Peter's Basilica, and the picture on the right is the coat of arms of Pope Benedict the 16th as seen on the tapestry hanging from St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. The embroidered arms were displayed for the Palm Sunday services in 2006. This photograph was taken by Ava on 9th of April 2006. Here sits the Pope who came to New York, the Empire State, and sat under the Moor's head, while those who are descendants of Moors debate as to the impacting validity of the honor of their direct ancestors. One can resist this, however, upon a real challenge, which means study. Those who try to prove facts wrong will find that they are proving them to be correct. Their personal acceptance is based on their willingness to take responsibility and recognize their obligation. This is important for the future of progeny, as the children will be left to fend for themselves without the benefit of truth of self. How can one stand as man or woman without knowing who they are, and knowing the blood of their ancestors that continues and will continue to run through them, which make up who they are? It is best advised that we study to know these things and stop the attempts to discredit our foremothers and fathers, thus take our place amongst the affairs of men. This is Article 6, 11, and 21, and additional 1787. Note the Treaty of Peace and Friendship in its full text found on the page Forgotten Scrolls. That's on rvbay.com. Article 6. If any more shall bring citizens of the United States or their efforts to His Majesty, the citizens shall immediately be set at liberty and the effects restored, and in like manner, if any more not a subject to the dominions shall make prize of any citizens of America or their effects, and bring them into any of the ports of His Majesty, they shall immediately be released, as they will be considered as under His Majesty's protection. Article 11. If we shall be at war with any Christian power, and any of our vessels sail from the ports of the United States, no vessel belonging to the enemy shall follow until 24 hours after the departure of our vessels, and the same regulation shall be observed towards the American vessel sailing from our ports to the enemy's Moors or Christians. Article 21. If any citizen of the United States shall kill or wound a Moor, or, on the contrary, if any Moor shall kill or wound a citizen of the United States, the law of the country shall take place, and equal justice shall be rendered, the counsel assisting at the trial. And if any delinquent shall make his escape, the counsel shall not be answerable for him in any matter whatever. Additional article. Grace to the only God. I, the underwritten, the servant of God, Tahir bin Abdul-Khalik, finish, do certify that this imperial majesty, my master, whom God preserve, having concluded a treaty of peace and commerce with the United States of America, has ordered me, the better to complete it, and in addition of the 10th article of the treaties, to declare that if any vessel belonging to the United States shall be in any of the ports of His Majesty's dominions, or within gunshot of his fort, she shall be protected as much as possible, and no vessel whatever belonging either to a Moorish or Christian powers with whom the United States may be at war shall be permitted to follow or engage her, as we now deem the citizens of America our good friends. And, in obedience to the Majesty's commands, I certify this declaration by putting my hand and seal to it on the 18th day of Ramadan, and in the year 1200, the servant of the king, my master, whom God preserve. That's Tahir bin Abdelic finish. I do certify that the above is a true copy of the translation made at Morocco by Isaac Cordoza Nunes, interpreter of the declaration made and signed by Sidi Hajj Tahir Finish, in addition to the treaty between the Emperor of Morocco and the United States of America, which declaration the said Tahir Finish made by the express directions of His Majesty. That's Thomas Barclay. And this is the treaty with Morocco, 1787. Now read the letter from George Washington to the Sultan of Morocco, dated 1787, in New York, the Empire State, indicative of the fact that this North America is the Moroccan Empire, not to be confused with the Moroccan Kingdom, because a kingdom is subordinate to an empire. It also proves the obligation of the newly formed United States of America to the Moroccan Empire. Be mindful that the preamble states, this Constitution is ordained for the United States of America by we the people of the United States, two different entities, yet indivisible, and stands under the Republic, not the democracy. The democracy has no backing, no guarantee of unalienable rights, no immunities, no standings at law, etc. And now we'll read the letter from George Washington to Sultan of Morocco, New York, in 1789. Letter from George Washington to Muhammad Abidin Abdullah, Sultan of Morocco, City of New York, December 1st, 1789. Great and magnanimous friend, since the date of the letter which the late Congress, by their president, addressed to your Imperial Majesty, the United States of America have thought proper to change their government and institute a new one, agreeable to the Constitution, of which I have the honor herewith to enclose a copy. The time necessarily employed in the arduous task and the disarrangements occasioned by so great through peaceable a revolution will apologize and account for your Majesty's not having received those regularly advised marks of attention from the United States which the friendship and magnanimity of your conduct toward them afforded reason to expect. The United States having unanimously appointed me to the supreme executive authority in this nation, your Majesty's letter of August 17, 1788, which by reason of dissolution of the late government remained unanswered, has been delivered to me. I have also received the letters which your Imperial Majesty has been so kind as to write in favor of the United States to the Bashas of Tunis and Tripoli, and I present to you the sincere acknowledgments and thanks of the United States for this great important mark of your friendship for them. We greatly regret the hostile disposition of those regencies toward this nation, who never have injured them, is not to be removed on terms of our powers to comply with. Within our territories, there are no mines, whether of gold or silver. And this young nation, just recovering from the waste and dissolution of long war, have not, as yet, had time to acquire riches by agriculture and commerce. But our soil is bountiful, and our people industrious, and we have reason to flatter ourselves that we shall gradually become useful to our friends. The encouragement which your Majesty has been pleased generously to give to our commerce with your dominions the punctuality with which you have caused the treaty with us to be observed, and the just and generous measures taken in the case of Captain Proctor make a deep impression on the United States and confirm the respect for the attachment of your imperial majesty. It gives me great pleasure to have the opportunity of assuring your majesty that while I remain at the head of this nation, I shall not cease to promote every measure that may conduce to the friendship and harmony which so happily subsists between the empire and them, and shall esteem myself happy in every occasion of convincing your majesty of the high sense, which in common with your whole nation, I entertain the magnanimity, wisdom, and benevolence of your majesty. May the Almighty bless your imperial majesty and our great and magnanimous friend with constant guidance and protection. And that's George Washington. That was my George Washington impression. Are you a free Moor or are you a Negro slave? Read the PDF below. The Sundry Freak Moor case law outcome for the Journal of the House of Representatives in South Carolina. It clearly explains the distinction. And it reads as follows. The State Records of South Carolina. Journals of the House of Representatives, 1789 to 1790. Michael E. Stevens, editor. Christine M. Allen, assistant editor. Published for the South Carolina Department of Archives and History by the University of Southern Carolina Press, Columbia, SC 8557, copyright A 1984 by the South Carolina Departments of Archives and History, first edition, published in Columbia, SC, by the University of South Carolina Press, manufactured in the United States of America, ISBN number 0872499448, January 20, 1790, page 363, continue from previous page. Thereto our committee are Mr. Hugh Rutledge, Major Pickney, and Mr. D's House Journal for January 1790, 20 January 1790. All right, that was just a disclosure, and it reads as follows. A petition was presented to the House from sundry free Moors, subjects of the Empire of Morocco, and residents in this state, praying that in case they should commit any fault amendable to be brought to justice, that they are as subjects to a prince in alliance with the United States of America, may be tried under the same laws as the citizens of the state would be liable to be tried, and not under the Negro Act, which was received and read. The humble petition of Francis, Daniel, Hammond, and Samuel, free Moors, in behalf of themselves and their wives, Fatima, Flora, Sarah, and Clorinda, humbly sue with that your petitioners, some years past, had the misfortune, while fighting in the defense of their country, to be captured with their wives and made prisoners of war by one of the kings of Africa, that a certain Captain Clark had them delivered to him on a promise that they should be redeemed by the Emperor of Moroccan ambassador then residing in England, in order to have them returned to their own country, instead of which he brought them to this state and sold them for slaves. Since that period they have by the greatest industry been enabled to purchase their freedom from their respective masters, and now pray your honorable house that as freeborn subjects of Prince now in alliance with the United States, that they may not be considered as subject to the law of this state now in force, called the Negro Law. But if they should unfortunately be guilty of any crime or misdemeanor against the laws of the land, that they may have a just trial by a lawful jury, and your petitioners, as in duty bound, will ever pray. 1. Order that it be referred to a committee. Then following gentlemen were accordingly appointed: Mr. Justice Grimke, General Pinnicky, and Mr. Edward Rutledge. Mr. Ed Rutledge reported from the committee to whom was referred the petition of the Free Moors, which he read in his place and afterwards delivered it to the clerk's table, where it was again read for information. Ordered that it be taken into the immediate consideration, which being read that was agreed to and is follows, viz. Report that they have considered the same and are opinion that no law of the state can, in its construction or operation, apply to them, and that persons who were subjects of the Emperor of Morocco, being free in this state, are not triable by law for the better ordering and governing of Negroes and other slaves. Resolved that this House do agree with the report. It is important at this time to read Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States of North America, 1791. It is self-explanatory that all contracts, debts, agreements, etc. entered into prior to are valid against the United States Constitution as well as the Confederation. Okay. Article 6. All debts contracted or engagements entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under the Constitution under the Confederation. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. After the death of Sidi Mohammed, Emperor of Morocco, the United States of America was very concerned as to whether the emperor's son, Muley Solomon, would continue to honor the treaty. There is much correspondence recorded in the congressional records which reflect their concerns. The PDF below contains such correspondence from Congressional Record number 107, 4th Congress, 1st Session, 1795 AD. And it reads as follows. Sons who, being charged with murder or forgery committed within the jurisdiction of either, shall seek an asylum within any of the countries of the other, provided that this shall only be done on such evidence of criminality as, according to the laws of the place where the fugitive or person so charged shall be found, would justify his apprehension and commitment for trial. If the offense had there been committed, the expense of such apprehension and delivery shall be borne and defrayed by those who make the requisition and receive the fugitive. Article 28. It is agreed that the first 10 articles of this treaty shall be permanent, and that the subsequent articles, except for the 12th, shall be limited in their duration of 12 years, to be computed from the day on which the ratifications of this treaty shall be exchanged, but subject to this condition that, whereas the said 12th article will expire by the limitation therein contained, at the end of 2 years from the signing of the preliminary or other articles of peace, which shall terminate the present war in which His Majesty is engaged. It is agreed that proper measures shall be taken for bringing the subject of the article into amicable treaty and discussion, so early before the expiration of the said term, as that new arrangements on that head may by that time be perfected and ready to take place. But if it should unfortunately happen, and His Majesty in the United States shall not be able to agree on such new arrangements, in that case all the articles of this treaty except for the first 10 shall then cease and expire together. Lastly, this treaty, when the same shall have been ratified by His Majesty and by the President of the United States, by which the advice and consent of their Senate and the respective ratifications mutually exchanged shall be binding and obligatory on His Majesty and on said states, and shall be by them respectively executed and observed with punctuality and the most sincere regard to good faith. And whereas it will be expedient in order to the better to facilitate intercourse and obviate difficulties, the other articles be proposed and added to the treaty, which articles, from want of time and other circumstances, cannot now be perfected. It is agreed that the said parties will, from time to time, readily treat of the concerning such articles, and will sincerely endeavor so for them as they may conduce to mutual convenience and tend to promote mutual satisfaction and friendships, and the said articles, after having duly ratified, shall be added to and make part of this treaty. In faith whereof we, the undersigned ministers plenipotentiary of His Majesty of King of Great Britain and the United States of America, have signed this present treaty, and have caused to be affixed thereto the seal of our arms, done at London this 19th day of November 1794. And also just a note, document interest starts here, 4th Congress, 1st section, 1795, reference to Treaty of Peace and Friendship, number 107. Morocco. Gentlemen of the Senate, herewith I transmit, for your information and consideration, the original letter from the Emperor of Morocco, recognizing the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States and his father, the late Emperor, accompanied with a translation thereof, and various documents relating to the negotiation by which the recognition was effected. That was George Washington, United States, December 21st, 1795. This is an extract from instructions from the Secretary of State to Colonel David Humphreys, dated March 28, 1795. With respect to Morocco, it is proposed to obtain from the Prince Moulay Solomon a recognition of the treaty between the United States and his father, the former emperor. This you will endeavor to effect, if possible, for 20,000 years, $20,000. But if you shall find that it cannot be accomplished under $25,000, you are authorized to go to that amount. This negotiation you may either accomplish yourself or by such agency as you shall deem best calculated for the purpose, according as you shall find the state of affairs in Morocco upon your arrival in Europe. Now, this is George Washington, President of the United States of America, to His Imperial Majesty of Emperor of Morocco. Being desirous of establishing and cultivating peace and harmony between our nation and His Imperial Majesty of the Emperor of Morocco, I have appointed David Humphreys, one of our distinguished citizens, a commissioner plenipotentiary, giving him full power to negotiate and conclude a treaty of amity and commerce with you. And I pray you to give full credit to whatever shall be delivered to you on the part of the United States by him, and particularly when he shall assure you of our sincere desire to be in peace and friendship with you and your people. And I pray God to give you health and happiness. Now that's done at Philadelphia, this 13th day of March, 1795, and in the 19th year of the independence of these states, George Washington. By the President of the United States of America, Edom Rudolph, Secretary of State. To all concerned, to whom these presents shall come. Bet it known that I, David Humphreys, Minister Resident from the United States of America at the Court of Lisbon, being duly empowered and instructed on the part of the President of the United States of America to negotiate and conclude a treaty of amity and commerce between the United States of America and His Imperial Majesty, the Emperor of Morocco, or to renew with his said Imperial Majesty Moulay Solomon the treaty established at the Court of Morocco between the late Emperor Sidi Mohammed, a glorious member, and the United States of America, do constitute and appoint James Simpson, Council of the United States at Gibraltar agent in the businesses aforesaid in the conformity the authority committed to me, hereby given to him, the said James Simpson, all the power necessary to arrange and agree upon the time, the same, and certify and sign a convention thereupon, reserving the same, nevertheless, when concluded, to be transmitted by me to the President of the United States for his final ratification, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate of the said United States, given under my hand and seal at Gibraltar the 21st day of March 1795. That is D. Humphreys. Mr. Simpson to the Secretary of State. Rahabat, August 18, 1795. Sir, I have at last the happiness to acquaint you and request you will be pleased to inform His Excellency, the President, that this morning by appointment I attended His Imperial Majesty Moli Solomon at Meshahar, when he was pleased to say to me in public nearly as follows: The Americans, I find, are the Christian nation my father. I have given orders to Sid bin Ottoman to write my answer to their letter, which will be given to you, and to tell them I am upon the same footing with them as my father was. I did not fail to assure His Majesty that the United States would, or their part, be equally emulous to maintain that peace and good friendship which had so happily subsided between them and his father. His Majesty came out of the palace of horseback, and immediately after the recited conversation proceeded to Mesquinez and Fez. The Secretary of State, who remains a few days to give the Swedish ambassador and myself our dispatches, has assured me the letter for the President shall be written immediately, and as his is also entrusted with His Majesty's seal, there needs to be no delay. My next will of consequence convey the original, or translation, as the conveyance may appear to be secure. From what I have said, you will readily observe that all I shall, to appearance, obtain will be a letter from Moli Solomon declaratory, of his being on the same terms of peace with the United States as his father was. I am sorry that the resistance made to my solicitations of a recognition of the old treaty in form has been spun out to the last hour of the Emperor's being here, and that I have thereby been prevented from exerting that powerful interest I had happily raised from accomplishing in a more satisfactory manner the end of my mission, though I trust the promised letter will be expressive of what is in fact wished to be established, namely, that peace shall be subsisted between Morocco and the United States, as in the time of Sidi Mohammed, which, in my opinion, will fully answer the purpose of keeping peace during the present reign and of resisting any unpleasant demand should succeeding imperials make such. Muli Solomon's sudden departure of Fez is differently accounted for. Some allege he is gone purposely with the army to quell some disturbances which have lately happened in the vicinity of the city of Mequinez. Others, that is the consequence of the defeat of the troops he sent to the southward under Moli Calder, have sustained. In my opinion, both occurrences have their part in it, and that he will not, for the present contest with his brother. Moli Ase, the possession he certainly enjoys of the country south of Muribaya. The garrison of Mazgar have quitted the fortress as untenable and are expected here by sea. I have the honor to be James Simpson. Mr. Simpson to the Secretary of State. This is Girdabaro, September 14, 1795, and it reads as follows. Sir, during my residence at Tanagar and Rabat, I had the honor of addressing you 7 dispatches, whose originals or copies I trust will have reached you, and afforded His Excellency, the President, and yourself the ample information on my proceedings. There I was desirous of communicating. Since my return to this place, fifth instance, I have continued without advice of Colonial Humphrey's return to Lisbon. I have sought for information or when he may be expected from Mr. Short at Madrid. And if I find he cannot satisfy me, I shall no longer delay forwarding by the first good opportunity which may offer for the United States the original of His Imperial Majesty's Muley Solomon's letter for the President, which, as I mentioned to you, the colonial wished should go through his hands. In the meantime, I have thought well to send with this copy a translation of that letter, done with the assistance of my interpreter, which I hope will be found correct when compared with the original. I may have satisfied myself on this particular, but that I decline imparting the contents to any other person for the present. I had it in charge from Sidi Mohammed bin Ottoman by His Majesty's directions to recommend the appointment of a consul for Morocco, and that the vessels of the United States might be furnished with sea passes, cut as those of European nations to prevent accidents. On these subjects it may be necessary to say more hereafter. An expenditure of the public money and articles for presents put into my charge. I hope it will be found I observed every consistent economy, and although the great length of time I was detained in the country and unexpected obstacles I met have not allowed me to succeed in the particular equal to my wishes, yet I have satisfaction in acquainting you that a balance of both remain, as you will see by the ample statements which will be transmitted as soon as Colonial Humphreys returns to Lisbon, may enable me to determine whether it will be proper to transmit them direct or through his hands. Muley Solomon's retreat from Rabas to Fez showed that he had no immediate intention to act against Benazar, and the others have taken upon themselves to command in the name of Isham, who in fact is only a mere cipher, for he is never consulted on any occasion nor even allowed to come to encampments of those chiefs who commanded in his name. Ishima has also lately promoted some disturbances and near Tutin, but yesterday a boat arrived with advice of part of Muley Solomon's army and from Fez, having reached that neighborhood on Friday, and that he was himself at Alcazar with the main body. Asima, in consequence, immediately returned to the sanctuary from whence he had come, and his adherents to their mountains. We may, in consequence, expect that order will again be speedily reestablished in the north, and that the divisions of the empire I have had the honor of mentioning to you will continue for some time to come, whilst Solomon continues possessed of the fleet and the only port suitable for his protection. It is to him commercial nations will pay regard. I have the honor to be Solomon bin Mohammed bin Abdullah, to whom God be merciful, to the President of America, a prince, and to all the states. In the name of the Almighty God, there is no power but that proceeding from God, the great God. After this, we have received a letter where you mentioned the ambassador of Lisbon, whom you had appointed to come to us. And also, we have received your said ambassador's power to your consul Simpson, who resides at Gibraltar, by which he gives him power to act in every particular as he himself was authorized to do at our imperial court, which God has in his keeping, had he come to meet with us. By the present you sent us, and your letter, we know you still esteem us, and that you have regard for everything that concerns us. Your care to preserve our friendship is very agreeable to us, and you will experience the like from us, or more, because you are faithful to our Father, who is in glory. Your messenger, who we esteem, we have received in a manner worthy of the friendship which subsists between you and us. Also, we have received the present at his hands with satisfaction, and we have mentioned to him those articles of your present which were particularly acceptable to and our liking. Continue writing letters to us at our court, that our present friendship may be made the more secure and still increased. And we are at peace, tranquility, and friendship with you, in the same manner as you were with our Father, who is in glory. Peace. Sealed Rabhabat, the second of the moon Zafar, in the year 1210, Drobatar, September 1795. I hereby certify that the foregoing is a true copy of the translation done from the Arabic of Sidi Mohammed M. Fadl of a letter from His Imperial Majesty Molo Solomon to the President of the United States of America. This is France communicated to Congress January 4th, 1796, United States, January 4th, 1796. Gentlemen of the State and of the House of Representatives, a letter from the Minister Plenipotentiary of the French Republic received on the 22nd of the last month covered an address dated the 21st of October 1794 from the Committee of the Public Safety of the Representatives of the United States in Congress, and also informed me that he was instructed by the committee to present to the United States the colors of France. I thereupon proposed to receive them last Friday, the first day of the new year, a day of general and congratulation. On that day, the Minister of French Republic delivered the colors with an address to which I returned an answer. By the latter, the House will see that I have informed the Minister that the colors will be deposited with the archives of the United States, but it seemed to me proper previously to exhibit to the two House of Congress these evidences of the continued friendship of the French Republic, together with the sentiments expressed by me on the occasion in behalf of the United States, there are herewith communicated. G. Washington. The representatives of the French people composing the Committee of Public Safety of the National Convention, charged by the law of the 7th Fructor with the direction of foreign relations to the representatives of the United States of American Congress assembled. Citizens representatives. The connections which nature, reciprocal wants, and a happy concurrence of circumstances have formed between two free nations cannot be indissoluble. You have strengthened those sacred ties by the declarations which the Minister Plenipotentiary of the United States has made in your name to the National Convention, to the French people. They have been received with rapture by a nation who know how to appreciate every testimony which the United States have given to them of their affection. The colors of both nations united to the century of the National Convention will be an everlasting evidence of that part which the United States have taken in the success of the French Republic. You were the first defenders of the rights of man in another hemisphere, strengthened by your example and endowed with the invincible energy. The French people have vanquished their tyranny which, during so many centuries of ignorance, superstition, and baseness, has enchanted a generous nation. Soon did the people of the United States perceive that every victory of our strengthened their independence and happiness. They were deeply affected at our momentary misfortunes occasioned by treasons purchased by English gold. They have celebrated with rapture the success of our brave armies. The citizen adept who will reside near your government in quality of Minister Plenipotentiary of the French Republic is especially instructed to tighten these bands of fraternity and mutual benevolence. We hope that they may fulfill this principal object of his mission by a conduct worthy of his confidence of both nations, and of their reputation which his patriotism and virtues have acquired him. An analogy of political principles, the natural relations of commerce and industry, the efforts and immense sacrifices of both nations in defense of liberty and equality, the blood which they have spilled together, their vowed hatred for the past, the moderation of political views, the disinterestedness of their councils, and especially the success of the vows which they have made in presence of the Supreme Being, to be free or die, all combine to render indestructible the connections which they have formed. Doubt it not, citizens, we shall finally destroy the combination of tyrants, you, by the picture of prosperity, which in your vast country has succeeded to a bloody struggle of 8 years. We, by the enthusiasm which glows in the breast of every Frenchman, astonished nations, too long the dupes of perfidious kings, nobles, and priests, will eventually recover their rights, and the human race will owe to the American and French nations their regeneration and a lasting peace. The members of the Committee of Public Safety, that's J.S.B., Delmas, Maryland, Abdal, Paris 30th Venmer, 3rd year of French Republic, one and indivisible, October 21st, 1794. The Minister Plenipotentiary of French Republic to the President of the United States. Mr. President, I come to acquaint myself of a duty very dear to my heart. I come to dispose in your hands and in the midst of the people just renowned for their courage and their love of liberty, the symbol of their triumphs and of enfranchisement of my nation. When she broke her chains, when she proclaimed their imprescriptible rights of man, when, in a terrible war, she sealed with her blood the covenant she made with liberty, her own happiness was not alone the object of, and it says addressed to the Senate also. Now read Resolution number 75. Below, the PDF, out of Journal of Representatives in Philadelphia. Keep in mind, Philadelphia was the first capital for the United States of America as taught in public school. After Benjamin Banneker designed the White House in D.C., the capital was moved there. Moors have sufficient documented proof of who they are and who they are not. Those Moors in Philadelphia don't have to go very far to reference an acknowledgement record in 1933. 1933 Legislative Journal, House page 5759, Resolution number 75. Mr. Whitkin, Mr. Speaker, I desire at this time to call upon Resolution number 75, Printers number 1034. The resolution was read by the clerk as follows. In the House of Representatives, April 17, 1933, many sons and daughters of that proud and handsome race which inspired the architecture of northern Africa and carried into Spain the influence of its artistic temperaments, have become citizens of this nation. In the city of Philadelphia, there exists a Moorish American society made up of Moors who have found here the end of their quest for a home, and of the children of those who journeyed here from the plains of Morocco. This society has done much to bring about a thorough absorption by these people of those principles which are necessary to make them good American citizens. These Moorish Americans have since being here missed the use of titles and names annexations that were so familiar at home and which are used in accordance with the doctrines of the religious faith to which they are adherents, therefore be it resolved that this House commends the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia for the efficient service it has rendered to the nation in bringing about a speedy and thorough Americanization of these former Moors, and in accordance with the fullest right of religious independence guaranteed every citizen, we recognize also the right of these people use the name affixes El or Ali or Bey or any other prefix or suffix to which they have heretofore been accustomed to, or which they may hereafter acquire the use and right to use. On the question, will the House adopt the resolution? And the answer is, it was adopted May 4th, 1933. Depending on how you answer the question, are you a free Moor or a Negro or slave? You might want to know more truth about who you are, as documented, recorded in history. You will find in the PDF below the preface of the book, The Story of the Moors in Spain, written by Stanley Lane Poe. Very enlightening, uplifting, validating, and hopefully inspirational enough to help you shift into the responsibility and obligation state of mind which is necessary to redeem yourself, your children, and humanity. The Story of the Moors in Spain, Stanley Lane Poe, BAMRAS. Preface. The history of Spain offers us a melancholy contrast. 1200 years ago, Tariq the Moor added the land of the Visigoths to the long catalogue of kingdoms subdued by the Muslims. For nearly 8 centuries, under her Mohammedan rulers, Spain set to all Europe a shining example of a civilized and enlightened state. Her fertile provinces, rendered doubtfully prolific by the industry and engineering skill of her conquerors, bore fruit an hundredfold. Cities innumerable sprang up in the rich valleys of the Guadalquivir and the Guadania, whose names, and names only, still commemorate the vanished glories of their past. Art, literature, and science prospered, as they then prospered nowhere else in Europe. Students flocked from France and Germany and England to drink from the fountain of learning, which flowed only in the cities of the Moors. The surgeons and doctors of Andalusia were in the van of science. Women were encouraged to devote themselves to the serious studies, and the lady doctor was not unknown among the people of Cordova. Mathematics, astronomy, and botany, history and philosophy, and jurisprudence were to be mastered in Spain alone. The practical work of the field, the scientific methods of irrigation, the arts of fortification and the shipbuildings, the highest and most elaborate products of the loom, the graver and the hammer, the potter's wheel and the mason's trowel, were brought to perfection by the Spanish Moors. In the practice of war, no less than in the arts of peace, they long stood supreme. Their fleets disputed the command of the Mediterranean with the Fatimites, while their armies carried fire and swore through the Christian marches. The Cid himself, the national hero, long fought on Moorish side, and in all save education was more than half a Moor. Whatsoever make a kingdom great and prosperous, whatsoever tends to refinement and civilization, was found in Moslem Spain. In 1492, the last bulwark of the Moors gave way before the crusade of Ferdinand and Isabella, and with Granada fell all Spain's greatness. For a brief while, indeed, the reflection of the Moor splendor cast a borrowed light upon the history of the land which it had once warmed with its sunny radiance. The great epoch of Isabella, Charles V, and Philip II, of Columbus, Cortez, and Pizarro shed a last halo about the dying moments of a mighty state. Then followed the abomination of desolation, the rule of Inquisition, and the blackness of darkness in which Spain has been plunged ever since. In the land where science was once supreme, the Spanish doctors became noted for nothing but their ignorance and incapacity, and the discoveries of the Newton and the Harvey were condemned as pernicious to the faith. Where once 70 public libraries had fed the minds of scholars, and 500,000 books had been gathered together at Cordova for the benefit of the world, such indifference to learning afterwards prevailed, that the new capital, Madrid, possessed no public library in the 18th century, and even the manuscripts of the Escurial were denied in our own days to the first scholarly historian of the Moors, though himself a Spaniard. The 16,000 looms of Seville soon dwindled to a fifth of their ancient number. The arts of industries of Toledo and the Almeria faded into insignificance. The very baths, public buildings of equal ornament and use, were destroyed because the cleanliness devoured them, too strong of rank infidelity. The land deprived of the skillful irrigation of the Moors grew impoverished and neglected. The richest and the most fertile valleys languished and were deserted. Most of the populous cities which had filled every district of Andalusia fell into ruinous decay, and beggars, friars, and bandits took the place of scholars, merchants, and knights. So low fell Spain when she had driven away the Moors. Such is the melancholy contrast offered by her history. Happily, we have here only to do with the first of these contracted periods, with Spain in her glory under the Moors, not with Spain in her degradation under the Bourbons. We have endeavored to present the most salient points in the 8th centuries of Mohammedan rule without prejudice or extenuation, excuse that pronunciation, and while not neglecting the heroic characters and that's where it cuts off. All right. So I'm actually going to end the video here, and we're going to stop at this page was inspired by and researched by David Sinclair Bay, who has also provided in the PDF below information regarding the conceptual origins of the Constitution for the United States North America Republic, which was written in the ancient spirit of divine law. Thus, it is a divine and spiritual document. And it reads as follows. Some history of the concept origins of the Constitution, again by David Sinclair Bay. The reason why the Constitution for the United States of North America Republic has 7 articles which govern the trinity of the executive powers, the legislative powers, and the judicial powers is because it was adapted from the principles of 7. The 7 days of the week: Sunday, Sun; Monday, Moon; Tuesday, Mars; Wednesday, Mercury; Thursday, Jupiter; Friday, Venus; Saturday, Saturn. The 7 cardinal colors: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. The 7 chakras: the crown chakra, the brow chakra, the throat chakra, the heart chakra, the solar plexus chakra, the sacral chakra, the base chakra. The 7 key notes in the musical scale: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The 7 black seas, the 7 seas: the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, excuse that pronunciation, Persian Gulf, Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Adriatic Sea, Arabian Sea. The 7 continents: we have Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and South America. Very important. The 7 virtues: faith, hope, charity, strength, prudence, temperance, and justice. The 7 deadly sins: pride, avarice, luxury, wrath, idleness, gluttony, envy. The 7 liberal arts: grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. In the development of man, after the 7 stages of development in the womb and then birth. The first 7 years is the age of reason. The second 7 years is the age of puberty. The third 7 is the age of maturity, 21. The principles of 7 were created by the grand architects of the universe when she divided her 28-day cycle into 4 equal parts of 7. The 28-day cycle of the moon is within her. These are the principles of the 7 that operate civilization. The framers of the Constitution adapted the principles of the circle, or cycle of 7, and agreed to operate under these principles in harmony with nature. All right, and there you have it. That was just a little bit of more history. And with that being said, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your energy. Please like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and leave a comment. And until next time, study well, study all things, and then study yourself. Islam and Islamism. Peace.